Hey podcast listeners, this is Kevin O'Connell, founder of the Niche Movement, where we're looking to solve employment unhappiness and help you tell your story better. So if you got a chance, I had about a 4.5 minute introduction to what this podcast is all about and why I'm doing this and what I hope to achieve. And like I said, this is really going to be predicated on some of my passions and things that I've experienced over the last 7 to 8 months, as well as really my career journey since I graduated college in 2006. But it really is predicated on you. I'd love to know what you want to talk about, questions you want answered. So if it's career advice, career exploration, how to stand out, digital branding for yourself, if it's social media strategy, content creation, photo, video, branding, what's working well for some large organizations, what's not working. Feed me those questions. I'm really looking to field as many questions and give you my frame of view and point of view as best as I can, because I'm super passionate and interested and ready to rock and roll here. So what we have in store here for episode 2, I thought this was appropriate before I kind of go down the path of extending the story of the book and kind of going through that in episode 3, 4, and 5, is lessons learned from writing a book. And for those of you that don't know me, I set out about a year ago, July of 2014, on a 30-day blogging challenge, really to just inspire and tell the story of others that helped me start to find my niche, from previous supervisors, friends, family, coworkers, work experience, personal experiences. And one thing led to another where we built this fan base and this interest, and my wife was like, Kev, you need to turn this into a book. And so we spent August running a Kickstarter campaign that was so well received, and we had 85 plus supporters, and raised the money to literally self-publish this book, and it just got released in around June 18th of this past summer of 2015, and can't be happy enough with the excitement and encouragement and just the readership. We've already had about 100 people purchased the book, and some universities actually looking to buy the book for their student leaders and alumni associations. So what I want to talk about though today was lessons learned from writing a book. And aside from having the people that I might talk about here in the book and that I might talk about here in the podcast, this was a solo effort. No big publisher, not a lot of money, not a lot of resources. This was literally the definition of bootstrapping. And the toughest thing I think about, and I'm going to talk about this probably in episode 3, is trying to do this book while also launching your business. I left Rutgers University in October, right around October 2014, and that's when I went all in on the digital storytelling business side. Was fortunate enough to get a handful of clients and doing some great work for them right now. But in the meantime, I had this book that needed to be written with a deadline of February 2015, which was only about 5-6 months. And so my first lesson here that I really want to communicate to any of you, and I know some of you out there have expressed interest in writing books and things like that. My first lesson here that you really need to kind of take some time to think about is whatever deadline you have set for yourself, add another 2 to 3 months to that, at least. So if you think you can curate or write or publish a book, whether it's fiction, nonfiction, whatever it might be, and you're doing this self-publishing, you know what, even if you're not, even if you're doing this and you've actually secured a publisher, add 2 to 3 months onto that deadline. I would even recommend, if you are working full-time, that those extra 2 to 3 to 4 months is going to be crucial. Unless you're just solely have left your job or doing something that you're just solely writing, then I'd say maybe you can get a book out in 5 to 6 months, depending on the quality and what you're actually researching and talking about. But I had this grand idea that, hey, this will be no problem. I have what I thought half of my content written, and I would get into this, and by February we'd fulfill our Kickstarter orders. Well, that wasn't the case. Life happens. Between moving to Washington, D.C., that was a little bit of a hiccup, to then working to secure clients and make sure I had an income and a living coming in. That was a big one. And the biggest part, I think, that kind of extended the life of this book is, I remember I've heard Simon Sinek talk about this, is there was more to tell, there was more to research, there was more people to interview. And so interviewing the people that we've already interviewed from February 2013 to October of 2014, as soon as I put this out there, there was more of our supporters and friends and family saying, oh, you got to interview Mike and Ann Howard from Honeytrek, who quit their jobs and went on their honeymoon and traveled the world for 2 years. Or you have to meet, Epa, who is a beer strategist now for Lagunitas out in San Francisco, and he went the traditional route, going to college and then getting a consulting job, but he somehow discovered his passion here in the craft beer world, and he has a great story. So one thing led to another, where I spent hours here and there interviewing these amazing people from around the world in all walks of life, and that really was one reason why the deadline kept getting pushed and pushed and pushed. The second lesson I would really recommend is get as many people in your corner as possible. I can't thank our graphic designer, my wife, our many editors that are in the front of that book there, but get as many people in your corner and get them to read the book, even if it's short passages. If it's you have your first half of the book written, or you have different pieces of content written, maybe they'll help you figure out a way to kind of thread all of this together. And that was one of my biggest difficult challenges. I think it was in end of March, right around Easter. I had it all written. I had about 90% of the content written, and I was so stressed and had a lot of anxiety because I still did not know the order and how to frame this together. And luckily, through talking with different people and my wife's expertise of her doing some self-publishing with her former company, we were able to really put together the thread of this book. But it was those people that sat down and edited parts of the book, or even, to be honest, we had people like Nicole and Camille that actually cleaned up part of this book as well, just for some wording, and it really tightened it up. So I can't thank those people enough, and that's my second lesson, is get some more people in your corner and get as many eyes on this. So this is this is a self-published book, so if you see errors in this book, that's why. We still had many people look at it, but at the end of the day, there's so many people and there's so many eyes that you can look at it. But this was a really solid effort with a lot of people involved. The next thing I mentioned this is a graphic designer. I wanted a professional looking cover. I obviously was on a tight budget, but using the network of WeWork, which is the community workspace that I work in here in DC, and some other contacts that we had, I put a call out to about 3 or 4 different graphic designers, told them what my budget was, and we got this great graphic designer in New York City, Lilith Cashelin, and she worked with our budget and came up with a bunch of great designs. And the best thing is, we were able to take my inspiration and her expertise and her design, and she was very thorough, and she gave me several drafts of different variations of the book. And again, I went back to my network and shared with about 5 people, hey, what do you think of this? What goes where? What color scheme works best? And she was just great. And so I would say, scrounge together those couple $100, find a friend, find a family friend that can come up with a professional looking cover, and make sure that they understand the dimensions. I'll talk about Amazon Create Space here in a second, but having something in professional file size right is very crucial, especially when it comes down to crunch time when you're ready to publish. The next thing is collect and curate as much as you can for the book. So, when I thought I had enough research, my wife was like, Kev, you need more. And so I kept kind of collecting more and more research. But the one lesson here and the one tip is when you start writing, you got to start putting in endnotes and citations. Start from literally 1 and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and work your way all the way down. I remember we had 2 halves of the book, chapters 1 through 4 and 5 through 8. And when we went to merge them together, all the citations got a little bit all over the place. And so luckily, with some help, we were able to go, I think there was about 35 or 40 citations. Unfortunately, we had to spend about an hour and go one by one and make sure they were all accurate in the document as well as in the citation and notes part at the end of the book. So my 2 lessons here is collect and get more content, more research, more interviews, more things that you're thinking you're going to need, because you're going to cut some stuff out. But get the research, because then you can always cut it out, but then make sure you go in one through consecutive order of endnoting them and not separate them in multiple documents. That'll be very tough at the end. The next thing is Google and Amazon are going to be your friend. If you're going through Amazon Create Spaces, which is where I published this book, they were your friend. Google, if you Google how do I create a placeholder on Amazon, it tells you how to do it. How do I do pre-orders? Amazon Create Space and Google will tell you how to do it. All the way down to the amazing thing is, and I don't think this was the case a couple years ago, Amazon actually has templates on 5x7 books, 6x8, 5.5 by 8.5. I downloaded the size book that I wanted, and then it literally was formatted and I plugged in the different content. And that took about a half a day, but it was all right there. I didn't have to start from scratch. And then going back to the graphic designer, I was able to tell Lilith, say, hey, the book is going to be about 150 to 180 pages. Looks like this is going to be the paper width, and this is going to be the bleeding areas, and she knew what to do. And within, I think, 2 tries, we submitted to Amazon. Within 2 tries, it got accepted. So Google and Amazon were completely my friend, and I would say to make sure you utilize the Amazon Create Space Network and all of their tutorials, resources. And one other thing, don't buy a barcode. Amazon Create Space provides a barcode, so every book, if you're looking to really sell it officially, needs a barcode with an ISBN number. Amazon Create Space will give you that. Don't go to any third party. I think I wound up spending $25 on a barcode, didn't even need it, didn't even use it. The next thing here is market the book along the way. So I think I still could have done a better job of this, but from interviewing all the people I just talked about in that book, I remember I would ask them for their headshot, or I would tweet about them that I was interviewing them back in October, November, December. So literally, so many more people want to find out what's going on behind the scenes. They are intrigued by the transparency that's happening with individuals, organizations, and brands. So the more that you can just get yourself out there and say, hey, this is exactly where I'm at in the process. This is exactly who I'm interviewing. This is exactly what I'm writing about right now. I remember I gave little teasers through my Instagram account, through Twitter. So I think people really want to see that. Plus it shows progress. You're literally marketing the book and promoting it before it becomes live. And the other thing is share different designs. Especially if you're on a tighter budget than I was, put it out there and say, hey, for $50, we're looking for somebody to do the best cover design, and here's the parameters. So find ways to market the book beforehand. And the last thing is really, it goes back to, I think my second point is have as many people surrounding you and supporting you as possible. So when I actually went to fulfill the orders, I remember we had about 80 people we had to ship the book off to, and I remember looking about the first 5 or 10 or 20 so people that I wanted to get the book in their hands first. So I made sure that the first 48 hours of the release, that those books got out to those people, because I knew that they were going to be the activators and supporters and promoters of this book, which literally now, about 2 weeks later, I can see on social media that so many other people are sharing it because it got talked about through social media and through word of mouth, and that's really helped us. So that's just the biggest thing, is keeping your fans and your supporters in your corner, and don't be afraid to ask for help. There were several times here in this process, I think, as you can notice from my voice and from my story here, that this was a very tough process, but the most rewarding process and project that I've had to date. And if I can ever help anybody that's looking to self-publish, even if it's a 10-pager, I'd be willing to help talk you guys through it. Again, there's a ton of resources out there. So thank you so much for tuning in. Please share your questions and thoughts. We're going to be kicking off episode 3 just in a few days here. So chime in with your questions. It could be about the niche movement, about the book, about entrepreneurship, disruptive leadership, whatever it might be. Please share your questions, and I'll be sure to answer them in just a few days. Thanks so much for tuning in, and have a great day. Thanks.